Hi, today I'm going to do a little video on the best 4-bay NAS we have for different categories, depending on your use case, what you want to use the NAS for. So we'll jump straight into the first NAS, which is our TS-433. This is great for building a personal private cloud home multimedia center within reason. I'll get to that. First, we'll jump straight into the specs and what the NAS looks like. So it's got an ARM quad-core 2 GHz CPU in there, 4 GB of RAM. It's non-expandable, but that's plenty for anything you'd be doing with this unit. It runs the QTS operating system, and it also includes an NPU, a neural processing unit, which is absolutely fantastic if you want to use it for things like facial recognition and acceleration, things like that. It's got one of those built right in. It's also got a 2.5 gig LAN and a 1 gig LAN. The 2.5 gig LAN does also work at 1 gig, so if you wanted two 1 gig connections, you can use it for that as well. It only uses 22 watts of power, so very power efficient. That's fully populated with 4 hard drives. And the noise level is only 17.4 dB, so a very quiet NAS as well. Moving into just some sort of use cases, target users, we would put this in our home user section for the mid-range. So again, ideal for creating your own personal cloud, so you're able to have remote access to this if you want to. You can enable that with our My QNAP cloud application. It does have the built-in NPU, so if you're using face and object detection, say in our QMagi software, for example, our photo management software, it really accelerates that task of looking through the photos for faces and objects and things that you can search by. Home entertainment center works great with Plex. I guess the only caveat here is that you wouldn't be able to use it with Plex with hardware transcoding. There is no graphics card in it, and there is no way to add one, and which you would need for hardware transcoding. So I would say you would only want to use this if you're able to play the media back without transcoding it. I have done a video before on the, I think the predecessor of this unit, the TS-230 with Plex, and it does work just fine. It's basically just a file transfer if you're not transcoding the file, and it's absolutely capable of dealing with that. And it's great as a centralized backup for all your computers, devices. You're able to back up to it either in the same network, remotely, depending on how good your internet speed is. But yeah, this is the TS-433, a great sort of starter NAS, quite capable. It's got most of the functions that our more powerful ones do. It's just with this one, you'd have to pick to do just one or two of the functions, whereas our more powerful ones will be able to do more things at once. But as a great starter NAS for getting all your data backed up into one place, running a personal cloud, a really good choice. Moving on to the next one, so this is probably our best-selling one, which is the TS-464. So it's a very compact NAS, much smaller chassis than most of our other 4-bays. Very high performance, which is brought about by the Intel Celeron quad-core CPU there. So it's 2.9 GHz, so faster than the last one. It does come with double the RAM, so it's got 8 gig of RAM and is non-expandable, so 8 gig is its maximum. It does have Intel UHD graphics on this processor though, so that means it's got a graphics card built right into it, which I'll talk about a bit later on. Two 2.5 gig LAN ports this time. Again, they do work at 1 gig, so if you wanted a couple of 1 gigs on your network, they will work for that as well, but you are already future-proof there with the two 2.5 gig LAN ports. Two M.2 PCIe Gen 3 NVMe slots, so if you were looking to do any SSD caching, Q-tier, anything like that, it's got the dedicated SSD bays inside, kind of turns it into a 6-bay rather than a 4-bay with those. To gain access to those, you just have to pull out your 4 disks, and you'll see inside there, you'll see the M.2 SSD slots, so that you can get at them without even needing to use any screws to remove any panels or anything. On top of all that, in this compact chassis, we do actually still have a PCIe Gen 3 expansion slot in the back as well. So if you're wanting to put in something like more 2.5 gig ports, even a 10 gig port, you've got that slot visible at the top left on the back image there, so that you can add PCIe Express cards into the back of this device as well. So really cool for expandability options. It does have a HDMI 2.1 port as well, so if you wanted to hook this up to a screen, so for example you could hook it up to a monitor and display your CCTV live image or play some media out of that. So you've got the option there to use the HDMI out for that. And this one does use a bit more power at 40 watts. So that's fully populated again with all the drives. It is a more powerful NAS, so it is going to use a little bit more power. Noise level as well, because it uses more power, it generally is going to be a little bit louder, but it is still a very quiet NAS, a very large fan. We can spin it very slowly, but 36.1 dB on the operating as well. So the use case and target customers, we would put this in the SMB mid-range. So it's definitely a step up from the TS433 we talked about before. But because of that quad-core CPU being much faster, it makes multitasking absolutely easy. So no problem running multiple things. My personal NAS is the 3-bay version of this, and I've got it running CCTV for 8 cameras, Plex media servers, a couple of containers, and I've also got it doing a VPN server for WireGuard as well. So it's a really capable platform to be running multiple things from all at once. Because it does have a built-in GPU, it's great for video conversion tasks or what a lot of people seem to be buying it for. It's an excellent choice for Plex. So you are able to use hardware transcoding if you've got a Plex pass. That built-in GPU is very capable at doing transcodes, even for some 4K content, all 1080p, 720p, that type of thing. But it doesn't even use sort of CPU power to do that transcode. It does it all on the GPU that's built into the NAS. Really, really efficient at doing that. A great platform for CCTV as well. So with our QVR Pro software on this NAS, you can run up to 24 cameras. You'd probably want to limit a bit less. You might run out of capacity with just 4 bays for 24 cameras if you're doing a meaningful retention of that footage. But as I say, I've got mine running with 8 cameras, absolutely fine, no problems. The CPU usage is less than 50%. RAM usage is less than 50%. Works absolutely fantastic for that. It's upgradable as well to dual port 10 gigs, so we do some expansion cards that you can put in the PCIe slot in the back. For this one, you wouldn't want to go past dual port 10 gig. So whilst we do have 25 gig in other categories, it wouldn't be recommended for this. We'd probably want to go to a more powerful NAS to go up to the 25 gig. But the 10 gig will allow you to make full use of any SSD acceleration that you're doing in the NAS. So if you are using the M.2 NVMe SSD slots, you're able to make full use of that. With the two 10 gig ports, we can get a maximum performance of over 1,600 megabytes a second read and write on this unit. So very, very high performance if you need it. So to reach those numbers, you would need the dual port 10 gig card putting in. But it's just sort of demonstrating that even out of the box without the dual port 10 gig card, it's a very, very fast NAS. So moving on to the last one in the category here. So we've got the TVS-H474. So this is again a step up from the other two NAS. This one is capable of doing PCIe Gen 4, which gives you options for expanding up to 10 gig and even 25 gig options. So moving into the specifications for this NAS, it's got an Intel Pentium Gold. It's a 2-core, 4-thread, 3.7 gigahertz, so even faster again than the previous one. Comes with 8 gig of RAM as standard, but this one is upgradable all the way to 64 gigs. So if you were using it for virtualization applications or anything like that that would need a hefty amount of RAM, this one can do it. In a very small package as well. It does also have the Intel UHD graphics, great for hardware transcoding as with the previous NAS. Comes with two 2.5 gig LAN ports built in as standard. Again, they do work at 1 gig if you need that. Two M.2 PCIe NVMe slots, so you've got 2 slots there for doing the, again, SSD caching or Q tier. And 2 PCI Express expansion slots. You can see those at the top left on the back. So they will allow you to plug in different devices for 10 gig, 25 gig, our QM2 cards for adding SSDs, things like that. There's a lot of options you can do with those 2 slots. It does also have a HDMI output because we do have the Intel UHD graphics. Again, you can use that for playing media, live views of your cameras, things like that. And because it is one of the more powerful NAS we do, the power consumption is a bit higher at 78 watts, but it is very quiet, only 21.8 dB. So we're able to keep the noise level down of this NAS quite significantly. A couple of extra fans in there just to really keep it cool where it needs to be kept cool. Each one is smart controlled to try and keep the noise down. So this would be in our SMB high-end category, if it wasn't obvious from the specs. It's a very, very powerful NAS. Now the difference for this NAS compared to the previous two is this one works with QUTS Hero, our ZFS-based operating system that we have. So this is, you can still run QTS on it if you want to, but it is pre-installed with QUTS Hero, so it's got the ZFS file system. And with that PCIe Gen 4 x16 slot, a very fast slot, it will support all the way up to 25 gig network cards if you wanted to add that. And with the RAM capability up to around 64 gig of RAM, you are able to run multiple virtual machines and containers all simultaneously, no problem at all. And another use for that PCIe Gen 4 fast slot there is you can put PCIe graphics cards in, which will increase application performance of things like Plex, or whether you want to pass the GPU, the graphics card, straight through to a virtual machine, you're able to do that as well. Now, maximum performance on this one with the two 25 gig ports is over 2,900 megabytes a second on the read and write. So a big step up from all the other NAS in this category. So it's a really, really high power NAS. Just so you can sort of summarize everything between all the three NAS we've talked about today, I've done a little comparison chart just so you can see all the different things on there. So the processor ARM 4-core 2 gigahertz, Visa 4-core 2.9 gigahertz, and then we've got the 2-core 4-thread 3.7 at the top end. Just a nice brief overview of all the different specs and functions of those. If you want to read that in your own time, feel free to pause it. But that's the three NAS I wanted to focus on today for the best 4-bay NAS. We started with the TS433, great starter NAS, TS464, probably our best-selling mid-range, and then you've got the TVS-H474 right at the top end there, very, very powerful unit. With all these NAS, we do them in different base sizes, so if you like the specs, you can go and look at the website. We've got lots of different versions of these. So 2 bays, smaller ones are the first two, and for the end one there, we go to bigger and more powerful units as well in the same series. If anybody has any questions on any of these three NAS, please do let us know in the comment section down below, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks. Bye.